ready for the intro yet? This is the intro. Did you trip over the bin?
No, just not the lid off.
Oh. Did you trip down the stairs? Okay.
Yeah, just prepare for
Are you going to trip over the wire? Okay.
I didn't even have a drink last night. Stay a bit.
You didn't even have any smelling salts last night. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Planet SkyFF, the world where everything revolves around £50,000. My name's Such.
My name's James. I'm not ready.
You are always ready to go.
Yeah, of course.
When it comes to talking about football. Sky Fantasy Football. James, I had an average week. I think I had a bad week. I had 49 points. What did you get?
I'll let you know in a minute. But yeah, that sounds not great.
Not great at all.
Who was your returnees? Why I try and log in because I'm not ready.
Depends what you consider a return. Are we counting tier points as returns?
Yeah.
Then I got a few, but other than that, I got nothing. On the Friday, I'm assuming you were Gibbs White, like me?
Yes.
Nothing. On the Saturday, I went Erling Haaland. I went against the Salah owners.
I did the same.
And I didn't own... You own Salah at least?
Yes.
I don't own Salah. So, again, captaincy blank. On the Sunday, I went Jackson captain over Colwill, which actually ended up being a win. And against the Enzo Fernandez captainers, James, it ended up being... it was a draw with the Enzo Fernandez captainers.
Wasn't a win over the Emi Martinez captainers, though, was it?
No, well done on that one. And on the Monday night, I went with Saka over Saliba. At least I own Saliba, but the 5-point swing from game week 1 reversed, right, in this fixture with Saka. So, yeah, I'm sitting here with Alisson, 3 points, Dunk 5, Saliba 7, Colwill 0. I did have Trent as well. I'll talk about transfers in a sec. But Trent was nothing. Rashford 2, Saka 2, Nakamba obviously no fixture. Rodri and Bissouma were the tier point guys for me, which was decent. But literally that was it. And I did make 2 transfers over the weekend as well. I sold Gibbs White after the Friday night game. Didn't need to see him in my team anymore. And I bought Bissouma. And Trent was flagged as potentially having a knock, but due back within a week. And looking at it, I had no money, James, to give me any flexibility for future moves. So I decided that with the 2 home games for Chelsea, plus there's another potential couple of captaincy, or one other captaincy maybe there as well, going to another Chelsea player was the right thing for me to do on the Sunday. Gave me a better captaincy than Colwill on the Sunday, gives me a better captaincy than Colwill this Friday, and gives me some money in the bank. So I thought Trent to Jackson, I'll do it. Captain to Jackson, not worth it, yellow card. And it gives me money to move off Nakamba after West Ham for Luton, captaincy to go to an Mbomo or something like that. The reason I say Mbomo is because I'm looking for future to the Brentford Forest game, and I want to captain him in that. And I think I may skip the Sheffield United Forest game. So I've got 2.4 in the bank now. I'm like 60k.
You mean the Forest Burnley game?
Forest Burnley, I'm going to skip, sorry. And I'll just have Mbomo for the Forest Brentford game. So as it stands at the moment, I feel like a bit more comfortable with my team than I did before the weekend, having made those 2 changes of getting rid of Gibbs White and Trent for Bissouma and Jackson. Jackson I'll come off after their run of 4 or 5 decent games, probably, I would say, anyway. But it felt sparse, mate. I didn't have a lot going on. And part of the other reason, I know I've got no Salah. So one of the things of coming off Trent was that I still got Alisson in goal. So, like, worst case scenario, if I need to captain a Liverpool player in a fixture, it'll end up being Alisson. But I didn't see the major need in the coming weeks for it anyway.
No, I think there was a case to come off Salah for a few people this week, subject to what you have in the rest of your squad coming forward. What have you left yourself in the bank now?
2.4.
Do you know what you want to do this week?
This week, nothing.
That's interesting.
He says. You'll probably convince me otherwise, but this week, nothing.
I think I probably will. 69 points for me, which I think...
I tell you what, though, you also enlightened me this morning that we've had the October fixtures out. So, you definitely will be teaching me a thing or two on this, on this show.
We'll cover the October fixtures and I was going to say repercussions. That's not the correct word, is
Consequences.
it? Consequences.
Yes.
Of that announcement. So I made one free transfer on Sunday. The Morgan Gibbs White sale, which I think what's really important to add on why I was absolutely convinced in terms of doubling down on selling Morgan Gibbs White after Friday night and not worrying about these two future single game days Forest have got is I was sitting there with not the best Nottingham Forest asset, which had we known it and his fitness prior to game week 1, many of us would have probably started with Taiwo Awoniyi, who's obviously scored, 8 consecutive Premier League games or something he scored in?
Yeah.
So
he's on a great run.
I'm looking at coming back potentially to him when those single game days come round. Effective when it does, when Forest do play Brentford, there's a effective 5-1 over Chelsea. With the Burnley captaincy, then Man City away, fine 2 points, whatever, and then Brentford. Because obviously Chelsea play on. Oh no, they don't. They do. They played the day before at Bournemouth, don't they? And then they've got the Monday night fixture at Fulham. So I'm kind of looking at the moment as Awoniyi is the exact same price as Colwell. So if I decide to go down that route, by the way, I think going and Mbeumo is absolutely fine. You look at them fixtures coming up: Palace, Bournemouth, and Everton all at home in the next 4. Gives you potential cover for captaincy if you get into a sticky point for Sunday the 17th when they go to Newcastle. And then obviously you've got the Forest game after that as well. And then there's another home game with Burnley, couple after that. And then you could move it on to something else if you want to, if you don't like it anymore. So, yeah, I think going and Mbeumo is absolutely fine. I know
it's still a few weeks away. So I say a week away. It's a week and a bit away. So
there's a number of people that started with him and be pretty happy with that. We knew he was going to be on pens. I think the big difference with him now as well is he's kind of more of a 90-minute man now, rather than a 70, 75-minute man. So with the additional time, you're potentially looking at an extra 20 minutes every week. So kind of over every 5, you're potentially looking at a kind of an extra game roughly or so. I had the choice of selling Morgan Gibbs White of any Chelsea player because of the way I'd set up. So the choice I went for was Thiago Silva, who was just under 100 passes again at the weekend. That was kind of primarily off of little bits of concerns on Colwell's positioning, which I think is even stronger now because 100% that was left back against West Ham. But he was only just underneath again. So there's nothing to say in these kind of easier on paper fixtures coming up that Colwell won't hit pass and tiers. So I decided to take that route rather than a Nicholas Jackson route, just in case I decided to buy another forward. And the reality was I'd seen him in one game against Liverpool. It wasn't enough for me to make a decision. Whereas with Thiago, almost like the Rodri Foden thing, I know what I'm getting. I know what I'm getting. If I go down that route, I'm invested. And that's clearly a better captaincy choice for Friday rather than Colwell because Thiago Silva will hit pass and tier. That's almost a certainty Friday night.
You have to put it in the context of price, though, as well, right?
Yep.
Because obviously Thiago Silva's is actually not that much more than Jackson. Okay, I thought there was a bit more of a jump, 8.5 versus 8.2.
Yeah, he's not on radar for many because...
I thought Thiago Silva would be in the 9s.
Well, he's not on radar for most because most have obviously got Colwell, I guess. Or not most,
Colwell
but obviously
like
a decent size.
He's not an explosive asset, but he doesn't feel like a problem that people need to fix right now. If you've got him, you leave him in there for the next few.
Absolutely that. I mean, you'd at least have another look Friday night at an absolute minimum. I've mentioned about that idea of taking the Luton Forest Bournemouth games and then maybe turn that into Awoniyi for the effective 5-1 and then chain that on to perhaps going back to another Chelsea. I'd mentioned the importance of that Chelsea-Burnley game landing quite early on the weekend and match week 8, and it has landed on the Saturday, and there's a load of good movements off of Chelsea when they play Burnley to the next day. City, Arsenal, Liverpool, Newcastle, there's loads of entries. Possibly, ironically, despite the fact that they're playing Manchester City, it might be the right time to add a little Arsenal, actually, purely because of the captaincy day against Sheffield United, which is a couple of weeks later, because that would really be your entry point if you landed there with no Arsenal. So difference between me and you this week, essentially, so it's 20 points, Captain Martinez.
Did you get 69 points this week, did you?
I did, stop laughing.
Okay.
And I captained Saliba.
Yeah.
And Where my passing tier points, y'all? Because the game ended and I think he was on 58 or 59, despite being on about 45 at half time. Obviously, the red card had a big influence on that. But overnight he did change to 61 passes. He's not had the passing tier added yet. I'm going to assume at this stage that he probably won't do.
No.
Probably by the time this goes out, maybe it's been added. So there could possibly be a little bit more on it. That's a little concerning for the game that's not been updated as yet. As said, I had Salah as well. So plans for this week, for me, I think centre around Manchester City. Such
getting more.
Yeah, so I've got Rodri and Haaland in place, which is obviously absolutely fine, and there is no requirement to add more. Obviously, with Haaland sitting there, anything I add more is not for a captaincy purpose. But there's a good run of fixtures coming up. Sheffield United away, Fulham at home, West Ham away, Forest at home, Wolves away before that now Super Sunday trip to Arsenal on October the 8th. And other than the Sheffield United game, there's no entry for them really, mate. Because value-wise,
it's a fair point.
The only other one is obviously from Luton or West Ham after the Friday night game. And from a value perspective, unless you've got real money sitting about in the bank to move, maybe if you've got a Bowen, it might be an easy one to add City player, perhaps when City play Fulham on the Saturday. Otherwise, it's going to be a difficult one to turn a Luton or West Ham player into a Manchester City player. If you want more, it's this Sunday. And you see the team as well.
Yeah, there are good reasons to want to potentially go into them. See, I've got a few players here that I don't need anymore, like Saka. I don't need him anymore because Saliba will cover him off. So Saka to Foden or even adding Alvarez up top or something like that could be a consideration for me. Colwill, I don't need anymore because I've got Jackson that will cover me off the captaincy. So getting a Gvardiol or a Ruben Diaz there is a potential.
What you got in the bank?
2.4 million.
Oh, so you can do it.
Yeah, I've got a bit of jiggery pokery that I could potentially do and add a couple more City. I do get that point, actually. I didn't think about steaming in.
But then can you hold, in your case, so yours is a rare one now with that money in the bank, what can you flip Nakamba to? Is there anything you can flip it to? It's probably only Alvarez maybe though, isn't it?
Do you mean, at City? But why would I do that? I want Nakamba for the captaincy.
No, but what I'm saying is, for most people, if you want City, it's this Sunday.
Right.
Whereas in your case, you could add for
that
the
might
Fulham
be adding
game.
the fourth or the fifth City at that point. I mean, I don't know why we didn't just set up with 11 City players and just set and forget for this.
Because when you look at the back four that played at Burnley, my intention was to start with John Stones, right? Who's obviously out injured now. So that the back four that started at Burnley was a little bit more concerning. We've got a little bit more information now. We've got 2 more games of information, the Seville game and obviously the Newcastle game at the weekend. And that's why the one that's top the agenda for me really, Suj, is Ruben Diaz.
Yeah.
Who, when they move into this system where it's in a back three in possession, if he's going to sit in the middle of that, which looks the most likely at the moment, he's going to pass and tears most games. And obviously, as opposed to, say, Rodri, you've got clean sheets coming with that as well. So Ruben Diaz is the one that's top of the agenda for me. As much as the pull is there for Foden and the pull is there for Alvarez. Alvarez is a good price, like 8.6, I think, Suj. Foden's 9.5. There's a good pull for both of them. But it's a little bit like the Thiago Silva thing. If I invest, I know exactly what I'm getting. The only concern on that is the minutes.
Yeah.
But I think with John Stones out injured for a little while, I don't think over that kind of period of those 5 games, I'd be surprised if Diaz didn't start 4. I think. And so that's why he's top of the agenda for me. The person to cut for me, you'd mentioned obviously about Arsenal, it's probably Marcus Rashford.
Yeah, he's on the chopping block for a few people. He's on the fence, but and you can do that after the Forest game. But Arsenal and Brentford as the next 2 after don't fill you with fear of missing out.
Arsenal and Brighton.
Brighton, sorry.
The one consciousness on selling a Rashford is you've got the reverse problem. So where it's kind of entry point for City this Sunday, the only entry point back to Rashford would basically be next Sunday when they go to Arsenal. So obviously if I sell, I'm not going to go back and do that because the Brighton, Burnley, Crystal Palace, Brentford games all go first. Interestingly, the Sheffield United game, which currently is 2 p.m. kickoff on Sunday the 22nd, will move back to Saturday the 21st if Manchester United play in the Champions League on the Tuesday afterwards. Therefore, that means those good fixtures, which I think includes Brighton from an offensive perspective, Burnley, Palace, Brentford, and then if Sheffield United's the Saturday, I'm completely missing out on that. Obviously, if the Sheffield United game were to stay the Sunday, then obviously I can go back to that if I want to at that point. Then we've got City afterwards, then Fulham. It's not terrible fixtures, other than the City game. It's not terrible fixtures afterwards. So there has to be a consciousness. If I take out Rashford, that could be problematic. If suddenly something happens and I go, sugar, I've got no Manchester United coverage and want to go back, I'm not going to. Whereas if you take Saka out as the alternative, there are opportunities where you go, sugar, I've made a mistake here, I need to get him back. Obviously, there's next Sunday against United, which probably wouldn't be optimal. But then you've got another Sunday against Tottenham the 24th. And then another 2 weeks on, you've got Manchester City's on that Sunday, as I mentioned as well. So the route back to Arsenal is easier. But I don't have Saka, so it makes it fairly straightforward for me. If I want Ruben Diaz, Marcus Rashford, here's the sacrifice. And the reason why Rashford would be the sacrifice rather than Salah is looking all the way up to that Manchester United-Sheffield United game, I don't captain Rashford. He's never, despite those good run of fixtures, he's never best for me. Whereas Mo Salah, there's a couple of Sundays. I think Villa at home on September the 3rd, West Ham at home Sunday the 24th. There's a case for that. And also that day, even if the Manchester United-Sheffield United game on October the 22nd did move back to the 21st, Salah's got Everton at home that day, and it is the 12:30 kickoff. So my requirement for Rashford is not big. Whereas for Salah, there's a few there where I might have to kind of hide behind the sofa if I haven't got him. So at the moment, the idea for me at the moment is to move Rashford to Ruben Diaz on Sunday. Any other injuries, I may look to manoeuvre something else, which probably would be Foden. But I think reluctantly, I'm going to let that go. That's the thinking at the moment.
Okay, interesting. We'll see how it kind of plays out. What's your thoughts on the fixture announcements for October? Does it cause us any headaches, or do we kind of have the captaincy covered off? Yeah,
it's not too bad. From a captaincy perspective, there's nothing major you need to worry about now. The thing that it's obviously thrown up massive is you are going to want Tottenham. Yay, I can't wait.
Oh, I've already got one. Yay.
Well, some of us are sitting here with Richarlison, and who knows, maybe Sunday I might go, oh, sod this, I want to move Richarlison to something else. No, I can't move Richarlison to Diaz or Foden in one move. I could move it to Alvarez, would be a possibility. Once I've moved the Rashford to Diaz, it would potentially open it up. But the problem I'd have is I'll be sitting in a 5-3-2.
Right.
So I can't go Richarlison to Foden. It would still be Richarlison to Alvarez. Plan is, for me, with Nakamba, is Nakamba to Bissouma after the Luton West Ham single game day is the thought process at the moment. We'll speak about that more next week.
I had listened to the Hub Boys, and they were talking about Udogie maybe and what have you, but he's 7.7 and Bissouma's 7.3. I don't think you can justify the extra. I mean, basically with Bissouma, you've got just a ridiculous price for an asset that makes him more attractive than almost all the other Spurs assets that tick along.
The only interesting thing with Udogie, obviously, the game is changing in the sense, in terms of football itself, where players in the past who are fullbacks, we wouldn't overly look at in terms of passing tiers. Obviously, those who come inverted are capable. Yeah. And in Tottenham's case particularly, we saw that obviously Emerson's passing numbers against Brentford were off the scale, weren't they? Was he 100 near enough or something?
Yep.
So in these upcoming fixtures, Udogie is well capable of potentially being in the passing tier. And obviously there's a potential for clean sheets, although that's always a risk with Tottenham. As mentioned on the FPL pods, I have a concern that he might not start all of these upcoming 3 games. He is still young. Postecoglou's comments after the Manchester United game suggested there were players he wanted to look at. And I wouldn't be surprised if at some point in the next 3, Davis starts, for example. I don't hate it as a call, though. Because, yeah, it will pick up some passing tiers. Yeah, I don't hate it.
I think Bissouma's like your comfort blanket, though, isn't he? Well,
yeah, but then Udogie's got the probably a little bit more offensive threat, I would say, and obviously the clean sheets potentially to go on top.
Yeah, true. It's just, it depends how tight you're juggling your budget and whether or not that 0.4 is going to make a particular difference.
I think on that one I'd want to see more, whereas on Bissouma I feel like I've already seen enough.
Yeah, I mean, game 1 was passes, game 2 was tackles, so he's kind of showing a bit of all-round ability to pick up.
Just interestingly, though, because I know there's a few that will consider going Chelsea to Bissouma this Saturday, and say if Colwell got injured for me on Friday night, for example, I'd probably be doing the same. He might not hit anything this week, by the way, at Bournemouth. which might feel strange. We looked at this in pre-season with Bournemouth. They don't press the centre-backs. They press when it goes into the full-back area or when it goes into the midfield area. And I wouldn't be surprised if they have someone stuck on Bissouma. And so it might be that he misses out this week. But yeah, it looks like he's going to be a super asset. On these TV fixtures, so there's 3 additional weekends we now know. Saturday the 7th, I don't think it's something you need to keep in the back of your mind, but there should be a note that obviously Manchester City, Arsenal, Liverpool don't play till the next day. Manchester United are at home to Brentford, Saturday the 7th, so that's, you could say, oh, Rashford. But the reason I don't think people need to worry about it too much is obviously Chelsea play at Fulham the Monday before, Monday the 2nd, and they go to Burnley Saturday the 7th. So even if you're getting towards it and you think, I might be short of a captaincy on Saturday the 7th, you're potentially then looking at Chelsea sort of 4-0 potentially over some players. Tottenham, interestingly, are at Luton in the early kick-off on that Saturday. And the entry points beforehand for Tottenham are not great. It's arguably the Arsenal game Sunday 24th, then Liverpool, then Luton, so it doesn't feel great. So I think a clever thing to do with... The thing is with Bissouma, would you want to captain him on a Saturday away to Luton? That doesn't... It's a nice one to fall back on, perhaps for them single game days. But for Luton on a Saturday, when you've got the likes of Rashford playing Brentford or the Chelsea players playing at Burnley, for example, that doesn't feel ideal. It would be one that would offer as a backup. But if you want to get in sort of like a Richarlison or a Son, specifically for that Luton game, it's probably as a contingency. Player gets injured, okay, looking to get into Tottenham. Otherwise, you're waiting, really. And that's because the 2 single game days which will follow, which we'll come on to in a second. Sunday the 8th is pretty rough for captaincy. Arsenal against Manchester City, Brighton against Liverpool, and Newcastle go to West Ham. Newcastle entry point kind of really sits Sunday the 17th at the moment for that game against Brentford. If there's something you want to look at, you should obviously be conscious that the Champions League starts the midweek afterwards as well. That game could move back to a Saturday again if Newcastle play on the Tuesday in the Champions League. Champions League draw, I believe, is next Friday in 9 days from now. There's another entry point Sunday afterwards that will definitely stick, which when they go to Sheffield United. Sheffield United, Burnley. Then there's that other Sunday, West Ham, Palace at home. Good little run to punt something, potentially. But Arsenal, Man City doesn't feel ideal. You almost want an easier fixture that day, like, say, Tottenham going to Luton at the 2 o'clock. You go, right, yeah, I'll go and enter there. I'll go and punt something, Maddison, Son, Richarlison, whatever, punt something offensively. So that Sunday will be, you'd obviously have something, but difficult call at the moment, captaincy. I suppose you'd probably just captain Haaland, wouldn't you? Probably. Just
safety.
Yeah, just forget about it.
Because of the ownership.
Now, the following weekend's quite interesting. So, I should add, by the way, on that weekend, that there's one game that could move, and that might open up a more interesting one. It's obviously, if Aston Villa go through in the Europa Conference League, their fixture at Wolves will move to the Sunday. So that might open up one that, when it comes around, might look more attractive, and it's another entry point for Villa. Also, Villa's game, obviously, with Chelsea, Saturday 23rd of September, can move to a Sunday if they go through in the Europa Conference League. They're playing Hibernian tonight in the first leg. We would have to fancy them to go through, obviously. The following week, Saturday the 21st, I mentioned Liverpool-Everton, Saturday 21st October, obviously. Liverpool-Everton is the early kick-off. Manchester City have Brighton that day. Chelsea and Arsenal is the 5:30 kick-off. Great one for a booze up that day with the football surge. The next day, Aston Villa play West Ham in the 4:30 p.m. kick-off. And that will be a single game day if Manchester United play on the Tuesday in the Champions League afterwards.
My birthday!
The United-Sheffield United game would move back to an 8 o'clock kickoff on Saturday the 21st. There is no contingency to move anything else to the Sunday the 22nd. So Villa-West Ham would be a single game day in that scenario.
Might go celebrate my birthday getting...
Go to Villa Park?
Drunk. It's at their place.
Sorry, mate.
I don't know why I thought it was.
See if you can get a ticket to Villa Park, mate. Villa Park's a great away day.
Hey, Lee Jackson.
I wouldn't sit with them. I mean, you can wear a claret and blue shirt, but it'll be the wrong one. Following night, Monday the 23rd, Tottenham against Fulham at White Hart Lane, and obviously it's a big Friday. Entry point where I think even if you're sitting with Bissouma, you'll want to add something else. purely because it's 2 single game days in a row, and the opponents that they're playing in those 2 single game days suggest that you will want a Tottenham player. So it's Fulham at home on Monday the 23rd, and then Crystal Palace away Friday the 27th. We had this a couple of years ago with Arsenal. They played, I think it was Palace at home on the Monday and then Villa at home on the Friday. And you kind of really, because there's 2 in a row, I think you want to go into that Tottenham-Fulham game with 2 Tottenham players. Even if the second is Bissouma.
Yep.
I think you want to go into it with 2 players just to give yourself a little bit of contingency and a more powerful captain. So you got the 2 single game days there for Tottenham. Saturday the 28th, it really is Arsenal at home to Sheffield United. You could make a case for Villa players at home to Luton potentially, but again, if Villa go through in the Conference League, that fixture will move to the Sunday. Alternatives, Chelsea at home to Brentford. Newcastle go to Wolves. So, I mean, Arsenal at home to Sheffield United would definitely be the one Saturday the 28th. And then Sunday the 29th, you've got a lot of options that we could potentially add, obviously, Aston Villa, Luton to that. Liverpool are at home to Nottingham Forest. Looks the standout to go against Haaland, who is away to Manchester United.
Okay.
That's TV fixtures as it stands. There's nothing in there that's scary. I think consciousness of obviously Aston Villa West Ham could be a single game day, but because they'll regularly play on Sundays, that's not overly a concern. You can go and invest in that then. You will want to invest in Tottenham Monday the 23rd of September. Other than that, there's nothing too scary there.
Cool. Sounds like a plan. Captaincy for this weekend coming. I've got my heart set on Nicholas Jackson for Friday night.
Be Thiago Silva for me.
Yeah, I think that's a good option that you've got there. I'm going to roll the dice with Bukayo Saka on Saturday again over Saliba. Fulham, you told me, have the highest XGC of any club this season.
Yes, and
it's a home game at the Emirates.
And Paulinho will start.
Go on, Saka.
Even if he's, I was going to say he's on one leg, but it's one arm, isn't it, for Paulinho? That Paulinho will make a difference for Fulham. We know that. Obviously, Tim Ream suspended. They do have a natural replacement now in Calvin Bassey. He'll play. So yeah, I personally, for me, I'm going to go Rashford because I haven't got Saka.
Yeah,
I can't look at home to Nottingham Forest and not do it. I don't think, despite real concerns about them at the moment. So it will be Marcus Rashford for me on Saturday.
It's a close call, that one. I think we might see a bit of split.
It's interesting that for me it's close. Rashford or Saliba is close, to be honest. But I think I will go Rashford.
Yeah. Norwegia.
Yeah. Obviously, look, you see the team as well. The other big game on Sunday is Newcastle, Liverpool. So yeah, Haaland obviously if he's
all the way.
If he's in the team, your likes of Rodri. If you don't have it, obviously your likes of Rodri, Diaz, if they're in the team, Phil Foden. I mean, whatever you do, it's going to be a Manchester City player, I think, on Sunday. I can't see beyond that.
So, what do we think about the fixtures from the weekend? Any kind of tiering points or anything that caught your eye? I was keeping a bit of a close. Nicholas Jackson was on 3 tackles at half time. I thought I might get a tackle tier out of the guy.
I saw you mention that on our Slack SkyFF channel.
He didn't make another tackle in the entire game.
Watching your own team and you're relying on Jackson to get a tackle.
Mate, I want Jackson tackle tier points.
Very disappointing. Obviously, we mentioned Friday night, the Forest game, that is probably is kind of our new watch over the next couple of weeks. Because I do think, I know there's kind of the idea at the moment of maybe skip. And I think in hindsight, that was the right decision, wasn't it? When you look across Forest, Sheffield United, no one got double figures, I think, in terms of points across the 2 games, other than Awoniyi, who it would have been wrong to start with. Even to be honest, last week I was saying I'm not sure he starts against Sheffield United because he's not 100% fit. But I do think when it comes round, obviously, look, the alternative idea like what you've suggested with Brentford, good fixtures beforehand, skip Forest, Burnley's fine. But I think if it comes round, the fact that you've got the 2 there, an effective 5-1 over Chelsea, means that, yeah, I will want a piece of it when it comes round. They are both home games. But the one that probably stood out in terms of take note and keep an eye on for the Friday night game was Vinicius Souza, who's joined Sheffield United. And had he joined a couple of weeks earlier, he would have been a really interesting one to start with. 5 tackles in 58 minutes. From everything we'd been told, destroyer is the word that absolutely keeps coming up. He could turn into a bit of a tackle monster. And actually, ironically, despite the fact they're playing Manchester City this week and there's some rough fixtures after the Everton game, as an enabler, the tough fixtures aren't so much of a problem if you're looking for someone on tackles. So if Vinicius Souza potentially enables you something on Sunday, consider it. That's all I'd say. I want to see more than just the one game. He had a few shots in the game as well. Looks good technically. He's cheap as 6.7. 6.5.
6.7, sorry.
6.7.
6.7.
Yeah.
6.8 is Hammer.
He's definitely one to have on the enabler list. I think Hammer, not so much. Like he'll get attacking returns and stuff. Different type of player. From Fulham Brentford at the weekend, tier 2 shots here for Vissa and Mbumo, both doing pretty well at the moment. Save tier again for Bernd Leno. Issa Diop hitting passing was the only player who did in that fixture, despite obviously Fulham losing.
Did they count the back pass? That let Brentford in?
No, I don't think they counted the back pass.
That wasn't one of the passes he made.
For Liverpool, passing numbers lower than perhaps we would have expected against Bournemouth. Tiers for Robertson, Van Dijk, Konate, Szoboszlai, not for Trent, and all only in the 60s, those that did hit it. So I think there's probably one or two you'd have expected to be in tier 2 there. They weren't. Shot tier for Salah, Jota. Trent did hit a shot tier, which obviously covers up for it. 8 saves for Neto. What price is Antoine Semenyo, Suj, of Bournemouth?
Cheap.
I presume he's going to be in as a forward. As a forward.
Do you know what? When you click on their click on the player, it doesn't actually tell you what position they are.
That's very, very helpful. How many points did he get for his goal?
He got 6.
Midfielder then.
There we go.
Not as interesting. Although, to be honest, from a structure perspective, you should always, just as a caveat for new players, you should be very careful when you're getting a forward at that sort of price, if he was a forward, because they can be difficult to move off if you want to move it on. Another walloping win for Brighton at the weekend. Lewis Dunk was not Brighton's highest passer in the game. That was Billy Gilmour, 72. And Lewis Dunk just scraped tier 2 with 70, which is a bit of a surprise, actually. There was tackles for Gilmour as well, who I think will be in and out the team. Otherwise, I think he would be a really good option, actually. Solly March, 2 goals, shots here, 4 shots on target, 4 tackles as well. He's probably, I think, for this format, if you wanted to go a Brighton offensive player, probably the one.
Yeah, I was looking at Mitoma at the start of the season, but I think if I was looking now, I'd probably go to March.
What's March?
8-1.
And Mitoma?
8.
So March is more than Mitoma.
Correct.
That's interesting. But I still think it would be March. I still kind of feel like that the moment has gone.
Best opinion.
If you will.
No passing tiers, maybe the odd tackle tier, but definitely shot tiers, goals and assists are in the...
Yeah, but you're not going to get the goals and assists every week.
No, you're not.
Is the reality.
You're not.
Whereas seeing Dunk on 70 passes is a surprise that that's all it was at the weekend. Compare that to, say, this is what we kept saying about him, compare that to the Liverpool guys, we're surprised. Dunk's still 70. It's 21 more than Webster. It's 31 passes more than Estupiñán. So those who started with Estupiñán, and I know there's a number out there will have Estupiñán and Dunk, like it's perfectly reasonable, particularly to start with. I wouldn't be looking at investing in Estupiñán, no. I think Dunk starts on 5 every week, mate, near enough. Yeah. From Tottenham Manchester United, interestingly, Basuma 45 passes, which I'm surprised that he didn't hit it, but one of the reasons was Tottenham just couldn't get control in the opening half hour of the game particularly. But he made up for it with 5 tackles, right? And he does. I said this last week, that even though he's the deep lying player, he goes and hunts it. He goes and hunts it. He will have games this year where you'll feel like he hasn't been in any penalty box, and you'll be, for those who are new to the game, how is he a fantasy asset? And it's because he'll walk out with like 8 pointers. He will have games this year where he hits the passing, he hits the tackle. As a caution, what I already said, I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't hit passing at Bournemouth. If Tottenham obviously have big control like they had at Brentford, he'll get 100 passes again. Yeah. Christian Romero was the only Tottenham player that did hit passing. He was actually the only player in the game. Shots on target, tier 1 for Pap Sarr, I think will stay in the game. He's dirt cheap. I mentioned him in pre-season. But with Basuma, I couldn't justify not playing the extra for Basuma. 6 tackles for Anthony. Manchester City against Newcastle. Bruno Guimaraes hit pass and and what's interesting from this one, Sven Botman 53 passes, Fabian Schär 59, Kieran Trippier 52. This trend of teams being close to passing numbers against Manchester City continues, and consider all those three players completed more passes than Josko Gvardiol.
Okay.
50. Manuel Kanji 57. Ruben Diaz sitting in the middle of it 81. Further up the pitch, Kovacic 91, Rodri the joke 122, and was only one tackle off hitting tackle tier as well. Cole Walker also hit tier 1 passing. Haaland captainers did at least get shot tier, and for those who didn't see the game, he's had several near misses there. He's had a couple of chances that he's dragged them, and he easily could have scored on a different day. No concerns there. Villa and Everton. Torres and Konsa, the only two to hit pass and tier. We've got literally zero interest in Everton at the moment. Those who gambled Diaby will probably be a little bit disappointed that Villa have got 4. You've only got 64 minutes out of it and haven't got the attacking return. You did at least get a shot here. West Ham and Chelsea, 98 passes each for Thiago Silva, Axel Disasi and Enzo Fernandez. Enzo Fernandez, of course, took the penalty. Would he stay on them? I don't know. But Enzo will tick over absolutely fine. If you've got him this week, it's perfectly reasonable. There is, my consciousness with him is, there is a fault once Caicedo and especially if Lavia as well get integrated into the team, that Fernandes may play higher. That might take away from some of his tier. But at the moment, and I think particularly with the fixtures coming up, you should be absolutely fine if you want to go invest. But as ever with Chelsea, really, you should have bought on Sunday rather than buying on Friday. And finally, the Monday night football. Gay, Anderson, Saliba and White, all tier 1 passing. The Palace ones obviously came about after the red card. Saliba probably was on for tier 2 if Tomiyasu had not got sent off. Not only did Martin Odegaard nick the penalty off of Bukayo Saka, but it also meant he nicked shot tier as well. And he was also the only player in the game to pick up tackle tier. I think on Arsenal penalties, they may alternate. I wouldn't be surprised if they got one on Saturday and Saka took it, to tell you the truth. That's your tier roundup.
Nice. Well, some of the stuff that you talked about, we've been asked about in the questions that we've had in on Twitter. If you want to support the show and also get access to James's spreadsheet that plans out the fixtures, which has been updated, it's updated every couple of days or whenever stuff gets announced, then why don't you head over to patreon.com/planetfpl, where you can learn more about how you can help us grow the show. And also, we may as well give a shout out, if you haven't seen that James and I visited the boys at Juice yesterday for, what was it, hilarious.
I brought up Sky a couple of times and people got annoyed.
It was Nima, really, to be fair. We'll blame him. Make sure you head over to FPL Juice and have a listen, because honestly, I don't think I've laughed as hard in a little while. It was a lot of fun.
I thought in the middle of the show, Sid was having a whitey. Without giving the game away.
Yes. But it didn't happen. It was definitely worth watching that as well. Let's do some of these questions to wrap this one with what we've had in on Twitter, shall we? Right. Michael Haaland bought in Van de Ven.
Okay.
Against Manchester United on Saturday for MGW. Morgan Gibbs White. Worked out well so far. Cheers. Okay, there's not a question. Thank you. But yeah.
I don't even know what price Van de Ven is in comparison to Romero. I think Romero will see it as kind of seen at the weekend. He'll hit the passing tiers rather than... Well, there's games where they both will. What's interesting with the fact that obviously Tottenham invert both the fullbacks, it does mean that sometimes they can't pass the ball forward if it's all cut off. So there will be times where they end up exchanging passes back to each other. Van de Ven's 7.9. It's the same as Romero. I'd prefer Romero. Genuinely. It's fine.
Real Nidge Rid says, is Julian Alvarez a good Sky pick, or is it too risky with Pep Roulette? I've already got Rodri and Haaland, but the fixtures are unbelievably good. I think there's big upside there.
Yeah, there is. If you've got the cojones. That Jeremy Doku's having a medical this morning. He's probably going to play right wing once he. And again, it's not to say he didn't play for a month. Who knows with Pep, right? Where it's shaped at the moment, you've got Doku coming in. Bernardo Silva, we think, is also back available Sunday. The great benefit, as already said, with this week as well, as you will see that team And to be honest, Sheffield United away in itself is almost puntable for a lot of City players. I don't hate it. He's a good price, 8.6. Like, I can't promise you sitting here now with Richarlison in my team, if he pisses me off again on Saturday, that I don't flip that sort of move and just go for it. I could do. So I don't mind it. It's a good price. If you knew he was going to play everywhere at that price, he'll chip in. He'll chip in as much as, say, a Richarlison.
Yeah, for sure.
So, yeah, it can be considered. I would prefer Foden and the value, even though it's 0.9 more. I'd prefer to go down that route because I think I've convinced myself he's going to play the majority of games now. But again, factor in the comfort blanket of someone like Ruben Diaz. Well, I can't see me not buying Diaz if he starts on Sunday.
Josh wants to know if Rodri's clearly a brilliant option, but could Diaz be better?
Yeah,
he's also likely to get passes, also clean sheets, and he's just 0.3 more. Maybe not so on any shot tiers or assists or goals.
But right now it's together again.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It's both, right?
To reiterate,
it's both.
If you want more Manchester City, it's this Sunday really.
FPL Rata says, who are the best replacements for Trent? Again, Man City.
Yeah,
clear. Sunday. Also, go on.
No, it's more awkward because obviously Liverpool play on the day as well.
Do they? Yeah. Sorry, you're right.
And so really coming off Trent, you're looking at after the Wolves game, then it's probably Chelsea, but then you've missed the Luton Forest game, so that doesn't make sense. It could be, if the Newcastle-Brentford game stays that way, it could be the Sunday. Or, to be honest, you go into the Forest and that 5-for-1 and then chain that on to a Chelsea player on Monday the 2nd of October. Obviously, if Trent's ruled out, yeah, it's City all day long. Would you consider that? Just moving, if you're looking at the team and say Diaz is the one you want and you're looking at it and you're still sitting there with Trent, do you just do it?
Yeah. The run of fixtures for City is quite long, 5 or 6.
I think there's a case for it, yeah.
Because if it was 2 or 3 games, maybe not, but the run is good and they're in good form.
I just think on what we've seen so far, this idea of Trent being a monster for this is not there at the moment. That's not to say he can't or won't be it, but it's not there at the moment. And what I can certainly say, he won't be a monster on Sunday at Newcastle.
True. FPL Rutter also wants to know if it's worth moving for JWP or Bowen now in time for next Friday's game against Luton. If you don't own Nakamba and you're looking for captaincy coverage, then I can understand why you'd want to go there. But if you've got Nakamba, I don't think it's worth it.
So kind of manipulation you can do as an example here. So you could obviously move, subject to what you've got, Chelsea, move that into West Ham on Saturday, away to Brighton. Then you've got the Friday captaincy, and then you move that on to something else from any of the other 18 teams, obviously bar Luton, from Saturday the 2nd onwards. So you could come then back to Manchester City versus Fulham as an example, or wait for something on the Sunday perhaps. So there are manipulations you can do it, but reality is we're moving on the Chelsea player and then skipping Nottingham Forest. Nah, not for me. Like I think like I've got Nakamba, and the plan, as I said, is he's covered for me Friday. I'll captain him against West Ham into Basuma Saturday the 2nd is my thought process at the moment. I'm not, again, if you were going to buy West Ham, it was Sunday gone.
Dan Stewart, best 8 million or below defender or midfielder for the next few game weeks. I think I'd chuck Basuma's hat into it. Not.
Did you say midfielder or defender?
Yeah, or defender. Not for the next few weeks, but it does set you up for the single game days further down the road in case other things happen.
I feel like as well, like I'd said this last week, the way the game's set up with the pricing and stuff, and actually a lot of players kind of sort of Enzo Fernandez price range, if you want, that might be really good and accessible to us this year. I don't actually feel the requirement to have a Nakamba or a Vinicius Souza or a Papsar or someone like that appeals in quite... I don't think it's going to be necessary. I think like Basuma would probably end up being my cheapest player going forward. I don't think... And when you look at the fixtures after this West Ham Luton game as well, if you actually look at the best captaincies throughout, all the way up as far as we can look, sure, you got the Forest Burnley single game day. Right, so we've mentioned it's not a Forest midfield enabler anyway from that perspective. I don't think you'd want a defensive one. It probably is Awoniyi if he's fit, or even maybe the goalkeeper for a short period, something like that. So it's not in the midfield enablers. With Brentford, if you want to go them for their single game day against Forest, it's probably Mbeumo's a standout, right? And he's at kind of Enzo Fernandez price bracket. There isn't requirement otherwise up till the end of October now. So quite often it falls into place where we want something. And Paulinho had a few last year where there was a few single game days and stuff as well. I don't think with the pricing this year, I don't think the requirement to definitely want/need a Nakamba or Sousa is particularly there. It's not to say they're bad assets. They could be this year's equivalent of Paulinho. I don't think I'm going to go down that route. I think Basuma will end up being my cheapest player.
And last question of the show, James, but not least, goes to Sean Thompson. Looking far ahead, could Visser be a better option than Mbomo for the single game day, 0.7 cheaper and more likely to get shot bonus?
Why is he more likely to get shot bonus?
I didn't ask the question.
No, that's just the first thing I thought.
Yeah,
so I was just checking back to the Tottenham game. They both hit tier 1 against Tottenham and they both hit tier 2 against Fulham.
Maybe so because he's central striker versus coming in off the flanks. I don't know. I don't know what the thinking is there, James.
But Mbumo's shown at the weekend he'll still get bits, and those extra minutes, like he's ended up with a tap-in at the end of the game, admittedly partly because Fulham are down to 10 men, but Mbumo's on the pitch there and Visser isn't. So sure, you could spin that narrative and go, well, while they were on the pitch together, Visser had hit shot tier 2 and Mbumo hadn't. Yeah, sure, fair, but Mbumo's going to get a few more minutes as well. So do I think Visser potentially acts as an alternative? Yes. Do I think he probably stays in the team for the majority of these games through the middle? Yes. When they play at Newcastle on Sunday 17th, is it probably Mbumo and Visser and they play a back five? Yes, but for these home games coming up and the game at Forest on October the 1st, yes, it probably is a front three with Visser through the middle. The only consciousness as well is they have been linked a lot with players like Brennan Johnson, and there's a week of the window to go. This time next week, we'll have a clearer understanding. So it could be that you could look to move a Luton West Ham player into Visser Saturday the 2nd when they play Bournemouth at home, just wait that extra week and just get confirmation that they haven't brought another forward. You have to have that on your mind at the moment. If you're investing in any player, it's probably an extreme example, but City have already invested in Gvardiol. It's the one position on the pitch where they probably do have depth centre-back. I'm not concerned. If I'm buying someone like Visser this week, it's just a second guess of asking yourself and saying, am I sure Brentford aren't buying another forward here? I'd just be a little cautious of that. And Mbumo, whatever they do, is going to be a part of this team. So Brennan Johnson might join them, and they might go, right, well, yeah, we see Brennan Johnson as playing through the right. Well, in that scenario, where's Mbumo going?
Straight through the middle.
Probably through the middle, and the one that comes out of the team is probably Visser.
Agreed.
That's all. So just waiting that one extra week, I think, would probably be worthwhile.
Cool. Sounds like a good bit of advice there. Listeners, hope you enjoyed this episode of Sky Fantasy Football. Each and every Wednesday, we'll be back at you. So this time next week, and we'll see where we are with our transfers and what we've done. Other than that, tomorrow, James, you have live stream? We've done COTC yesterday.
No, People's Poll podcast.
People's Poll, yes, it is indeed.
Controversial one.
It is indeed. But the vote has already gone out for that. And on Friday, it's a Friday deadline.
I will be streaming early Friday morning, so 9:30 a.m. I think I'm going to do. So if you've got any more Sky questions, you can throw them on that stream. You're more than welcome to.
Sounds like a great time to chuck them in. Stay safe. Look after yourselves. Thank you for tuning in. Ciao for now.
Thanks, everyone. Play it your way. Good luck this week. Cue music, please, man child.
Sorted.
Ready? Sorted.
Ready salted.